Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another version of our podcast here, Fan Fuel Motorsports Podcast, the podcast where fans fuel talk about motorsport. Tonight, we've got myself, Alex Harrington, as always, with Colton Cranmore, Nathan Ball, and some guy who's been missing for a little bit, Jared Bakaisa. Jared, where you been, man?
Yeah, who's the new guy?
I've been lots of work, lots of work, but I'm glad I'm back. I got to go to two races. I got to go to the Richmond race and the Bristol race back to back. 3 days of the weekend off because I traveled on the Fridays, worked all those other days to make up for the days I missed, and finally found time to get back at it. I couldn't make the last two Thursday shows because I have junior high football games that I've been at, and I can't really miss out on those. But either way, wait, is my volume up? Do you need me to be louder? Or?
You're good.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah. Anyways, I'm glad I'm back. I got to enjoy some short track racing. Got to go to the two short track races so far. I might try to hit the Martinsville one in a couple weeks. We'll see if that actually happens. But like I said, I'm glad I'm back. Got to meet up with some friends from other podcasts down at the Bristol race, and hopefully I get to meet all of you guys soon. I still have yet to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously we're going to get into Dega mode a little bit later, but I mean, I was at the Dega race, but I've never been to a short track or anything like that as far as NASCAR. What was the experience like at Richmond and Bristol?
It was pretty electric, honestly. Since the Richmond race was on September 11th, they did a really cool tribute before the race, and it just gave you goosebumps. And like, man, this is awesome. I thought it was a pretty packed crowd. I don't know if it was sold out. I don't think they didn't say anything about a sellout, but like where I was sitting in the front grandstand, I was sat probably about the start finish line was a little like a couple sections over, and then there was me, but it was pretty sick because they had all the first responders were out there. They were doing the pace laps with the cars, and then they had the flyover jets right after the national anthem. They were doing laps around up in the air while the pace laps were going on. I'm like, hey, this is awesome. This is pretty awesome. Then I got to see a really good short track race. Like that was like an old school Richmond race. Like there wasn't a lot of wrecks in that race. There was tire wear. So that was overall a good race. And then obviously the Bristol race that you guys talked about a couple weeks ago, that was an old school NASCAR race there also. So just with all the things happening, comers and goers, and then there's that controversy at the end of the race, which I actually got a great view of because where my seats were at, like directly in front of me was that pit road area where that was all happening. Because I remember they were talking about Kyle Larson's the winner, and no one really cared about that because everyone was focusing on what was happening on pit road, and they showed it on the big screen, like as we were leaving, like they were showing that how Harvick and Elliott were talking in the garage, and then they just cut away back like, hey, we're here in Victory Lane to interview Kyle Larson, and everyone's like, boo, turn it back. Like, nobody even cared that Larson even won the race. And it was one of those races where I think it's funny because no one really remembers the winner, and there's a lot of those races in the past that you look back at and like, oh, who even won that race because of all the controversy that's happening like post-race, like we can go back to like the 2008 Richmond race. Everyone probably forgets that Clint Boyer won that race, or the Texas race with Brad Keselowski, Jeff Gordon fighting. Like Jimmy Johnson won that race, but nobody really cared because of all that stuff that was going on. So yeah, I got to see two really good races back to back, old school racing. Then Colton got disappointed with that Las Vegas race to follow up those 2 good weeks.
Yeah. Don't remind me.
Yeah, so actually, if you think about it, so the last 5 out of the last 6 races Fan Fuel's been represented at. Nathan was at Daytona, and then I was at Talladega this past weekend. Of course, you were at Bristol and Richmond, and then Colton was at Vegas. So all we had to do was send someone to Darlington, and we would have had a streak of 6 straight weeks.
Who's going to the Roval this weekend?
I would if Talladega was not beside it. If they weren't 2 weeks in a row, I would definitely be going to the Roval. That is the biggest thing for me.
Buddies that went to Darlington, and buddy going to the Roval, and I think one going to Kansas. So we might, between us and the connections, we might at least have 9 just in a group of like 6 people.
Yeah, so we've got a far reach. Don't think that you can't find us at a racetrack. You'll know based on what we say on Twitter or not, but we want to meet some guys. I know this weekend I met some people at Talladega, Jarrett Lundberg, or as you guys know him, the Iceberg on YouTube, along with the guys from Left Turn Cult and Chairgating, who've been on the podcast, Matt Rattlesnake, Texas, and then also Dalton Good. So that was really fun. But Jared, you said you met some people at Bristol. Who did you wind up running into?
I met pretty much almost everyone. I got to meet all of Left Turn Cult minus Parv. I got to meet Chairgating minus Rattlesnake. I got to meet some other friends of the friends of the podcast that I know that are always commenting on there. I got to meet my friend Vince Brent, who makes graphics also like I do. So that was pretty neat. I got a picture with Corey LaJoy. And
Hell yeah.
I did, yeah. It was actually kind of funny because they had the fan stage or whatever, and he was doing one of those Q&A sessions or whatever, and I so happened to time it out right. I had to go to the bathroom. I came back, and I decided to just hang out behind the stage, and he might come back here, and sure enough, he came back there. I got a autograph from him, a picture with him, and it was pretty neat. Michael Waltrip, I also got to see Michael Waltrip too, so he was around backstage also, and then post race. I found this was new too because I sat up with Cooper and Jacob from Left Turn Cult, and we actually found they usually go to Bristol all the time, and we found this one area. It's like the back part of turn 4, I'd like to say, or turn 3, wherever all the cars go out to leave and the haulers go out to leave, that area that goes out to the campgrounds, whatever. They said those guys have never even known about that area, but we went there post race, and we were able to see all the drivers go by in their golf carts, and some of them stopped. Michael McDowell actually stopped because Cooper had one of those 3x5 Daytona 500 champion flags, and he actually got that signed by Michael McDowell. So that was pretty awesome. Michael thought that was pretty awesome, and I'm sure there's probably not a lot of people that are that big of Michael McDowell fans,
Yeah.
Nothing against him at all, but that was nice that he stopped. We probably made his day after that.
Yeah, Michael McDowell's probably signed 26 autographs his entire career.
I'm pretty sure he signed one for me in 2016 or 2017.
Yeah, that's kind of sad, but I mean, he's the Daytona 500 champion now, so.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I also say that Bristol was very harsh on my wallet as I spent so much money because there are so many of those gypsy vendor tents around there. I don't know how many was down at Talladega. Was there a decent amount down there, Alex?
Yeah, so there's always gypsy tents down there. They actually have some right off the interstate, and then there's a gas station a mile from the track in between the interstate and there, kind of cattywampus to the short track, and then there's more even closer to the racetrack right across from Speedway Boulevard. It's actually a lot over there.
Did you spend a lot of money there? Or?
I did not. My dad came home with 2 full bags of new die casts and a couple of other things. So, whenever we show his collection off, you guys will be able to see all that. He came home with another 30 die casts.
Oh, I thought those were shoes.
Nope, that's all.
Where the fuck did you buy shoes down there?
That's all die cast that I found.
I pre-ordered some online.
Hell yeah!
Oh, you got some old ones too.
Yeah, so, this one's.
I guess on the topic of diecast, if y'all want, okay.
That's pretty cool.
That's neat. I don't even know when that race that was raced.
Jared's final win, maybe.
No, it's whatever his golf. It's a golf scheme. Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer, 50 years. This was
on the top.
Might just be a show car, even. That's
interesting. 2004.
If you all want that Bubba Wallace McDonald's win, you're going to have to pre-order it really fast because it's expected to be the top-selling diecast of the year.
These were $1. I got too many of them. I'm not gonna show off all these because I'll get too into that. But
I pre-ordered.
We'll have a diecast episode this off season.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do.
I'm gonna pre-order 3 of them, so I'm gonna come September, I'll be $300 in the hole. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Actually, last thing I'll show off too, just because it's a nice flex. I got an old Kyle Busch pit crew shirt.
Huh.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty cool. I actually got to RCR back in the day would sell off crew shirts at the pit box, and I actually got one from a Paul Menard shirt,
Nice.
from 2011. and it was pretty neat. So don't get that thing dirty and don't wear it.
Yeah,
Try to
definitely.
get that signed.
I might try to do that. I'm also still looking. I didn't see. I was really looking for Kyle Busch's rookie year jacket. That is still on my hunting list to find. I will literally, if anyone listening to this has or knows someone who has that, I will pay a good amount of money to get that. I'll even trade in that CarQuest one for it, just because I really want that rookie year jacket hanging up there next to the championship one in 2015. But yeah. It's getting cold out.
If you got that jacket, give Jared a PM, or I should say a DM at PKJared9 on Twitter. So Colton Nathan, with this pretty much little open segment before we get into the nitty gritty of Talladega and the weekend that was, do you guys have anything to say?
Yeah, on the topic of sponsor plugs, I want to say that I pre-ordered the Bubba Wallace win, because they said it would be like the highest selling diecast in the last few years. So might as well get it now before it becomes like $500, like some of those Jimmy Johnson diecasts and whatnot. And I've been to McDonald's 3 times in the last 4 days, including right now.
Hell yeah.
So I'll probably be eating McDonald's periodically in between you guys talking. So
the brand.
I'm a believer in sponsorship, and I'm definitely a sucker for it.
Absolutely. We actually stopped by McDonald's on the way home from Talladega, and until we were discussing it pre-show, I didn't even realize that we were supporting Bubba's sponsor, because I was like, wait a minute,
everybody's getting McDonald's.
I didn't put 2 and 2 together.
Even the McDonald's accounts in on it, like they're happy.
Oh yeah. I think they need to do a Bubba Wallace meal like they did with the Travis Scott and call it the number 23.
Yeah, they should do.
Okay, so I'll have a follow-up question, Colton, and we can all chime in on this. What do you think Bubba Wallace's favorite meal is? What would be the number 23?
Something to do with nuggets. I would bet nuggets and maybe like a hot and spicy and McDouble. You could just, enough people order that. You could just call it the Bubba Wallace, right?
Yeah.
I would think something with nuggets, though.
Yeah. I'm going to say
Bubba strikes me as a nugget guy.
I'm going to say it's like a 10-piece McNugget, fries, and like a double cheeseburger or something.
And a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. And also, while we're at it, on the topic of McDonald's, they should do something for like the fry boxes, because his paint scheme is literally called Fry Box if you follow their accounts. Like they should put his number on like the French fry containers.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Put like a 23 here or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Back on the topic, I think
large fries come in a race car.
The 23 that would be awesome.
You put the fries in the hood.
That would be pretty dope. So you could imagine like you're getting your number 23 meal or the Bubba Wallace special or whatever they want to call it, and you got like a race car like mug to put your like chocolate shake in, and then you got a Dr. Pepper on the side with a Dr. Pepper koozie, and then you got a freaking McDonald's hood.
Y'all forgot
that'd be awesome for the fries.
Heck, even if they put it on like the drink containers and stuff, like the drinks or whatever, because I remember I have like the old Jamie McMurray McDonald's things, or whatever, that me and my dad used to always get at McDonald's after the races, and that'd be even something like that. Like it's not that hard for them to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's not like they didn't put cars and stuff in the Happy Meals in the old days. I mean, the Mac Tonight car was one that I've got from when I was a kid, and it's not really a good diecast, but it's just like a cheap Hot Wheels that was in a Happy Meal. And I think they did that for Jimmy Spencer way back in the day too. And that's something that they could definitely do to get kids more into the sport. Oh, yeah. It's not like they don't put Hot Wheels in there every other month anyways.
Yeah, there was a restaurant I used to go to as a kid. It's still there. They do car meets, bike weeks, all that kind of stuff. It's basically like a racing themed restaurant down here, and like their kids meals when I was a little kid would come in like a race car shaped box. So cool. I don't know why they're not doing this. It has to be done.
Tons of marketing.
Just call them like Happy Wheels or something instead of Happy Meals.
Bingo.
Bro, that's trademark, bro. That's trademark.
McDonald's hire us.
Yeah.
Even do you guys
Happy Wheels a game?
Do you guys even remember do you remember the dinner boxes McDonald's used to do? You guys ever heard of that or remember that?
No, we were poor growing up.
Oh man, they used to do this. It was called a dinner box or whatever. It was like $12 or something. It came with like 2 burgers, nuggets, fry, like 4 small fries or 4 medium fries. It came with like a 10-piece nugget, 2 cheeseburgers. I don't completely remember, but like you could do some sort of like box or something. Actually, have that as like the car. Like even something like that you can put together, like something like this that I got at Richmond.
Yeah.
Some sort of box design like that, and then you can have all your stuff inside of there. Like, look at that. You could do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that'd be good especially for kids' meals and stuff. Man, McDonald's really should sponsor us. We should just be a marketing team for all the NASCAR sponsors. That's what we should do. Why not?
Now,
Please hire us.
On the topic of sponsorship, hell, let's go ahead and get into it. So we wanted to talk today a little bit about some I guess long-term sponsors that we kind of enjoy in the sport. I can't with Jared putting on the helmet right now.
There you go. Hell yeah. Looking like Speed Racer.
Oh
yeah, Racer X. Or it would be Racer Mac because he's got the McDonald's on his helmet. Go. So, yeah.
Racer J.
So, I mean, other than McDonald's and, of course, Jared's favorite probably sponsor, the Mars Company, I mean, what are some big sponsors that we've looked into, over the past few decades as being really good for the sport?
I'll be biased. I'll be biased. I'll just say that Mars is not even because of Kyle Busch. Mars has always done a really good job with their marketing. Like you go all the way back to like Ernie Irvan in the 36 and like Elliott Sadler, whatever. They always had like super good M&M schemes, whether it's like the Halloween themed or the Snickers schemes or even the pedigree combos, all those different like marketing like brands that they have in the Mars Company. Like they always do a really good job with that. And like, even Kyle Busch, like the past couple years, like one year he'll be in the hazelnut car, last year was the fudge brownie car, this year was the M&M's mix. You can go back all the way to like the pretzel M&Ms and pretzel M&Ms. They always have like a Halloween scheme. They used to do the pink scheme in October. That kind of died off after like 2 years, but either the red, white, and blue, that's always on the Coke 600. I always know he's going to be in that red, white, and blue M&M's car. So they do. M&M's has always done a really good job at marketing. And like I said, even before Kyle Busch, so I'm not being biased, like Elliott Sadler had some really good M&M's. Heck, even David Gilliland had some good M&M schemes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, M&M's is definitely one that comes to mind. When I think of M&M sponsored cars, of course, I think Kyle Busch, but I also think Ken Schrader because he was kind of the guy when I was a little kid. But I'm going to go another JGR sponsor. Interstate Batteries is another one that really sticks out to me. They've been around with Joe Gibbs since the beginning. They run a couple races a year, and they always have some fire paint schemes.
Except the zebra.
Except the zebra. But that 2011 Kyle Busch Interstate Batteries is one of the GOATs.
The white one?
Yeah, the white one. See, that
I love the white one, too.
I like that one. The white one's one of my favorites. They had that iconic brown kind of Interstate Battery scheme. That's one of the most expensive die casts you can find everywhere.
Oh, is that the gold? Is that the gold one?
The bronzish gold. Yeah,
it ran at I think 2013 at Dega.
Yep.
2013 summer Daytona.
All Battery Center. I like that scheme.
Yep.
Never did good, but I liked it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And I mean, they're a flagship sponsor for JGR for the better part of 15 years. So that's got to be worth something. I also want to do a plug real quick to Chairgating Rattlesnake. Sent me my Yeats.
Ooh, about time.
Ooh.
Did you finally get them?
So I'm gonna call out you, Colton, for this. So Matt and I actually had a conversation about how you haven't got your Yeats yet. So he said that you kept sending him the wrong address, and then you denied it and said it was the right address. So the first pair actually got lost. So those aren't the ones that you won.
No, these aren't. These are ones that he ordered for me. He could say that I sent him the wrong address all he wants. I put that address in to dozen. I get mail here. I've gotten packages.
I never had a problem with your package.
Uline is if you work in a warehouse, they send boxes. That's the exact same address I gave Uline. Got here in 3 days.
Yeah, I had
It
no
works for
problem with
everyone
your
else.
address.
Didn't work for Matt. Doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
Problem solved. I know what my house number is. All right.
Must be a Texas thing.
You sure?
I'm pretty positive. I'll DM it to you. Send me something. See if it gets here.
All right.
All right. Yeah, I just
I
wanted to
guess-
say something because one of the first things that he said when we met up at Talladega was that he was like, "Man, Colton and his fucking Yeats."
Yeah. I want them, man. I put in a lot of work to get those.
Hey,
Yeah.
didn't you win that like back in what,
Well,
June?
those, but these, yeah.
It only took 4 months.
Yes. So for me, I'm going to go with another JGR sponsor and its competitor. So I think along the lines, we've had some pretty good sponsorship from the Home Depot at JGR, and eventually they went out of the sport. But then also their competitor Lowe's. I think those are two of the most iconic sponsors that we've had. Lowe's stuck for many years with Jimmy Johnson. Also was on the Busch car for Kyle Busch, and I don't know. I mean, when you think of the 48, you think of Lowe's. You don't really think of Ally, which is kind of changing with them continuing with the 48 on Alex Bowman, but Lowe's coming in, sponsoring a whole racetrack, having stuff to do at the track. I never saw Lowe's do, but Home Depot for me was a great sponsor because they always had the speed stage was powered by Home Depot, and they had a kids section too. I remember being a kid, and they would always have these little stations where you would make wooden race cars, and you have simple little tools and stuff, and you put the wheels on, put stickers on to make it look like Joey Logano or Tony Stewart's cars, and it was just
I had that as a kid.
it was a great way to get kids into the sport from a not really kid-centric sponsor. So I thought that those two sponsors kind of just resonate with me. So Nathan, what about you?
I got two different. They're not like specific brands, but they're specific specific things. And the first one's obviously motor oil paint schemes like Valvoline, Pennzoil, etc. You see all these paint schemes. They're super marketable. They're very like simple colors that they've stuck with forever. You can go into like a service center for like a Pennzoil or a Jiffy Lube or whatever, and you'll see like stuff on the wall. You can go to like a Valvoline instant oil change. You'll see stuff on the wall, and like they do a lot of marketing for racing that really sticks out because you can see it anywhere you go. And the same goes for like beer companies. Let's see, Miller Coors is one. They used to do matching paint schemes with IndyCar and NASCAR for probably a good 15, 20 years until they left IndyCar. You go to a bar, like sometimes you'll see neon lights with like the Rusty Wallace number on it and stuff, and the Dale Jr. Budweiser for Anheuser-Busch. Like they've been in all sorts of racing. They've kind of become iconic with their colors. Even the Busch cars right now are becoming just as iconic as the Budweiser ones for Anheuser-Busch. So I remember them sponsored Williams F1 as a kid. They've sponsored IndyCar, they've sponsored NASCAR. I don't know why, but motor oil and beer are like the two things that stick out to me in racing just because I can see them everywhere. Like I cannot go to a race and not have at least one of those things on a car.
Heck, you even go to a bar or something, you always see
Yeah.
like old school,
neon
like
lights.
yeah.
There's like a Dale Jr. neon light and stuff, all sorts of bars.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, even
old-
if, like, especially in Wyoming, if you go to liquor stores here, every single one of them has something Rusty Wallace, something Brad Keselowski, Dale Jr.,
Yeah.
Kevin Harvick,
Harvick's
hanging up on the
got
wall. Yeah.
stuff in the grocery stores. Like if you go to the beer section, like they'll have like a cardboard car.
You guys have a
Right.
beer section at the grocery store?
Yeah.
It's called Publix.
You don't?
No, it's
Yeah,
illegal.
Publix is actually pretty cool because you can get a 6-pack and create your own for $12.99.
Oh, that's sick. We have that too.
Can't do that in Wyoming.
I actually got a Brad Keselowski cardboard cutout at home because there was like a department, or not like a department store, it was like a corner store that was closing down. And they said something along the lines of like, hey, does anybody want this cardboard cutout sitting in the corner? And I'm like, I'll take it for $5. So I've got a life-size cutout sticking
that's
on my
nice.
wall at home.
You need to bring it there. So I have Jeff Burton peeking around there.
I see
Yeah.
the car on the back, the Rusty Wallace car on the
Mhm.
shelf.
Yeah, and I was gonna say something about the cutouts that you have there, Jared. Basically, that's kind of something interesting that I've noticed, not just in stores, but kind of like in restaurants, like themed restaurants, like your Applebee's or your Texas Roadhouse, any of those Chili's, anything like that. It seems to be a kind of trendy, especially around a racetrack market, to have NASCAR stuff on the wall. I specifically remember at home, our Zaxby's had a massive like collection of like 60 or so gold-plated NASCAR collectible cards from the 90s, some Dale Earnhardt stuff and elsewhere. So it's not like we're just seeing this stuff at the corner store because it's just a beer sponsor. So I think it's interesting how I guess it went from being just a sponsorship thing to kind of like a I don't know a trendy thing to do as well.
Like I
Yeah,
can see, like Jared said in the comment section, like there's Logano not merchandise. I say there's Logano stuff if you go to like the Motor Oil aisle of any like big stores or to the service centers themselves. You'll see. I've just seen things everywhere for like motor oil or beer. It's just ridiculous. Like you'll see, I saw an Alex Bowman thing in a Valvoline instant oil change a few months ago. So
yeah, I saw
I thought that was
Ryan.
pretty cool.
Saw some Ryan Blaney stuff at AutoZone actually. That was
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because we talk about sponsorship activation within race weekends and stuff, but sometimes you get used to seeing stuff like still, even if you go buy a peak antifreeze now, it's got the 15 MWR car on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes, so like some of these stuff leave a lasting impact on
My
the
sport
sponsors.
King,
that,
Kingsford Charcoal. They
Yeah,
saw
It had like Bobby
big one.
Labonte stuff on it.
They still got the
Yeah.
2003 Stacy Compton 59 on the Kingsford Charcoal.
Yeah, they do.
My Sport Clips has an Eric Jones poster on the wall.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, we know they're around for a long time, right? Some of the guys we've listed. But what about the effects that the sponsors have given us throughout the sport? Some of them are really good sponsors, bringing a lot of money. Some of them are cursed sponsors. We saw a curse break this last weekend with McDonald's. The last win before Bubba Wallace's Monday for McDonald's was Jimmy Spencer in 1994. That's, almost 30 years without a win for a title sponsor car. They sponsored Bill Elliott through the late 90s. They sponsored cars in the late 2000s, Jamie McMurray. They sponsored Kyle Larson. Tons of cars since then. Some sponsors are just bad luck, guys.
Yeah, and I guess on the topic of that, I don't know if you guys are on like any social media forms of NASCAR, but you'll see this conspiracy pop up every time. And people always say, McDonald's, they wanted to lead the sport in the 90s because they weren't getting results. And then all of a sudden, as soon as that happens, Jimmy Spencer pops off 2 wins in the super speedway tracks, Daytona, Talladega, and they've never looked back since. And I just thought it was fishy because Jimmy Spencer never won another race after that, even though he went to similar caliber teams and whatnot. And people always say, NASCAR did something to help McDonald's out and keep them in the sport. And I just thought it was interesting because if they were threatening to leave the sport back then why didn't they leave it after all these years and not winning?
Yeah, that's something that was kind of
pretty interesting to me.
It was kind of touched on in the Dale Jr. download with Jimmy Spencer because like Dale had Jimmy on the show just because he kind of called out the conspiracy or whatever that NASCAR rigged the race for Junior, and then I think he threw the shade like, well, what about your Daytona win? Was that car legal or whatever? They kind of touched a little bit on that, so there is kind of something. There probably is a conspiracy on that, so it's not like it's completely false or fake or anything. Like it's definitely something that can be talked about and you can make an argument for.
Yeah, and hey, Jimmy even said in that episode that he thought the Junior race was rigged in 2001 Pepsi 400 because he had seen behind the curtain and he knows what goes on in NASCAR. Especially at that time, he said there was a lot of fishy stuff going on and them trying to rig races. Whether or not that's true, we don't know because obviously Jimmy Spencer's got kind of a loud mouth on him. But it kind of makes you wonder if that didn't plant the seed back in 1994.
Yeah. And a good question that I guess Nathan kind of brought up was why? Why was McDonald's still around, for 27 years without having any success? Now, I don't know if they had success in the lower series. I know they sponsored a couple races for like Bill Elliott when he drove for KHI, a couple races and stuff like that. I don't think they even had success in Xfinity or trucks. So, what does that say about NASCAR as a market value, and what does that say about McDonald's as just being loyal to the sport? Because it's not like they were ever any A-list drivers, after the Bill Elliott thing. Bill Elliott was in his own equipment. We talked about it before on the podcast, and how that he basically didn't do anything for those years in the 94 car. Jamie McMurray he rarely did anything, and when he did win those big races, he didn't win them in a McDonald's car. So I don't know what has stuck them around. I mean,
I'd say brand identity, because they're probably the biggest fast food presence in NASCAR. They almost have no competitors anymore. So
yeah, I think that basically just to go along with Nate, I think it's mainly brand awareness. I mean, how many McDonald's do you ever see that's like right beside the track or within entering the track, like if you're getting off the interstate or whatever? I feel like, you had a McDonald's car out there, like some kids are, hey, we should go to McDonald's after the race if you don't want to spend a bunch of money on your regular Speedway food. So I think it's mainly just that. Like, it's an easy sponsor. Like, yeah, we'll sponsor a couple races here and there just to get some brand awareness out there. Maybe have the kids stop at McDonald's on the way back. So
you guys are missing the point here. The reason McDonald's stuck around is not the fact that McDonald's was getting their value back in the teams and the drivers they were having. It's because at that time in the late 90s, sponsoring a car in the NASCAR Cup Series was a huge deal. That was when NASCAR was almost peak popularity. We were really starting to get in the upswing. We saw guys like Cartoon Network and John Deere sponsor race cars. That was the most colorful cars of the entire history of NASCAR, because we had so many different sponsors coming in and fighting for titles. That's why McDonald's stuck around, is because they didn't want to lose their piece of real estate they had with Bill Elliott. That goes to show how good NASCAR marketing can work, because they came back in the 2010s and the late 2000s. They came right back with Jamie McMurray. They had to have seen some type of financial value in that, to pay the whatever it was that they paid for Jamie McMurray to run a part-time sponsorship with them. They were going to get that back. And race fans, as we all know, race fans are super loyal to sponsors. Them going to McDonald's after the race during the week when they want something to eat, passing by that Burger King, stopping at McDonald's just because they sponsor Kyle Larson. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I think of sponsorship, I think of some of these brands being, big, some even being global, but most of them are some that, especially lately, that you might not have heard of, like Dow Chemical. The layman might not know who or what they do. Exalta, the same thing. Even DuPont, before the name change, you saw that on Jeff Gordon's car, but you don't know who they are marketing to or what they're for. But when I think of McDonald's or Coke, who sponsors Daniel Suarez sparingly and has the Coke family of racing drivers, I don't know. You're saying that the real estate, just having their name associated with the sport, is all they want, because they don't really need it, in my opinion. They're global.
McDonald's doesn't need it. No, but they see a value in it.
Right, and that's why I think that.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead. I think they chose to do that because when the time that McDonald's was at the peak, there were competitors in NASCAR. You'd see like the Burger King cars for DEI, so on and so forth. The Yum brands was big. Chance 2. And then in the late 2000s, they did sponsor a little bit of Champ Car when Bourdais won those 4 titles in a row. They worked with him. And they actually, in the late 2000s, they sponsored like Reed Sorensen, Casey Kane. And by that time, all the big competitors, like fast food wise, had left. Like there was no more Yum Brains in NASCAR. There was no more Burger King. Okay, there was. Sorry, BK Racing, but all that stuff was slowly leaving. And by the time that they left, they probably realized, hey, like we're all that's left. Like this is our stomping ground.
Yeah, and a good point to make is McDonald's is the leader in fast food industry. They are by far the top of the chain. They don't want to just be a name in NASCAR. They want to be the name in NASCAR. So at that time, when they started sponsoring, let's say Jamie McMurray, Subway was huge into the sport. Remember they ran those Carl Edwards and Greg Biffle ads? I think McDonald's kind of felt that they were losing NASCAR at that point. Because, I mean, and at that point, too, we kind of got that super healthy movement, right? And people kind of forgot about McDonald's. They try to play catch up there. But, I mean, they still want to be the name in every household in the U.S. When you think of fast food, first thing that should pop into your mind is McDonald's, and that's what they were trying to keep there. They saw a huge value in that to put it on TV, even if it was running 15th place every week.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting. I'm going to kind of go back into my earlier argument about how you're talking about these big sponsors that are supposed to be in the household all the time. I talked about Lowe's and Home Depot. Of course, my favorite driver and Nathan's favorite driver with FedEx. Everyone knows FedEx and stuff. But what about these obscure sponsors that we don't know? Like, look behind me at the Daniel Suarez flag. They sponsored Carl Edwards in the 19 as well. Who is Eris? Why are they there? And what did they get out of sponsoring a race car in NASCAR? Because when I think of racing, do I really think of cable modems?
Yeah, we can even go back into. I was trying to find the tweet of it, but do you guys remember whenever random energy drinks would always sponsor those back markers,
even AMP?
Yeah.
Speed Energy.
Speed Energy. Well, I think there was. What was it?
What is A-Shock Energy? I don't even know what that is.
No Fear Energy that Boris said would always run. There was that other one. I think it was Todd Dimes in the 60 car. I'm trying to find the tweet on it because I saw it a couple days ago. I just don't remember where.
I think that's the 60 car that I remember was a Sobe No Fear as well.
That was the Boris said, right?
Yeah. There was another one. I think it was. I'd like to say it was Todd Burdine's 60 car, but I don't remember.
Big Red Soda or whatever.
Hooters had their own energy drink. They sponsored.
That's what it was. Yeah, something like that. I'll find the tweet and get back to you guys on that.
Look at this, Brad Keselowski, sponsored by Hooters Energy Drink in the Truck Series. I did not know Hooters had their own energy drink.
Yeah, there was kind of that weird energy drink phase. Right, the early 2010s.
Yeah. So
okay.
Obviously competitive. Go ahead, Colton.
Weird sponsors are good, but they're terrible too, right? They're good because that brand is getting super exposure. Can any of you tell me that you knew who Aris was before NASCAR?
No, I had an Aris modem, but I didn't know.
Right, but I've got one now, and I know exactly when I see it. Oh, hey, I know who they are because of Carl Edwards and because of Daniel Suarez. The kind of off sponsors, I think of Ally Bank is kind of one. When they took over for Jimmy Johnson, I was like, who the hell are these guys? Right? They're not PNC. They're not any of these big name banks that I know. And a bank sponsoring a NASCAR Cup car is kind of weird, especially because I come from the era of Budweiser, Home Depot, John Deere. It's a little off. I mean, even that one kind of weird, right? When I was a little kid, I asked my mom. I don't know.
It kind of makes sense.
I asked my mom.
And they put it on the old guy in the field. So.
Yeah, why is the old guy driving the Viagra?
Why do you think there's commercials for all that stuff every week? It's a demographic they're targeting.
That's a good point. Yeah, and Slapshoes pointed it out even after Mark Martin got that Viagra sponsorship. Death rates for men for stuff like prostate cancer dropped. So it did something.
Okay.
Yeah, so good stat for you. But I mean, we've seen a ton of them, and I could probably go through the field now and name 5 or 6 of them. Do you guys know who Cody Ware's sponsor is?
Nurtec ODC. I don't know what that medicine even does.
I don't know what it does.
Bingo, right? But we
What
know
does it
who the
do?
sponsor is. And so when we see it in everyday life, we're going to register that. So I get why they do it, but in a way it's still kind of weird because I'd
Yeah,
still like to
Let's name
see
some.
Spam and all these other natural kind of
Right.
everyday brands out there.
Right.
Speed.
So I guess what you're saying is kind of it makes more sense when we think of consumer items rather than these products that are for maybe commercial and or other business
Specific
use.
use. Yeah.
Right. So like when I look at unfortunately Jeb Burton's sponsor leaving, Nutrient Ag Solutions is leaving.
That's a good one.
Who is Nutrient Ag Solution? What do they do?
I don't know. I'm not a
know. I
farmer.
don't care to research into it. That's probably why they're leaving, because they don't really grab the fan.
Or
Unlike another colleague sponsor, Leaf Filter. I mean that just we all know what that does because they're self-explanatory. So I don't know.
Oh, brand, yes.
I mean, Brandt is a big one. If you guys have seen Justin Allgaier, even in the Cup Series, I mean, he's always sponsored by Brandt. Brandt is a guy. I've seen him on Facebook. I don't remember his first name, but his last name's Brandt, and he's super into everything racing. Couldn't tell you what his company does.
They obviously have something to do with corn, right? So
Couldn't even. Yeah, I mean, it's something like that. Yeah, I couldn't even ballpark it.
Shoot, let's think of some weird ones. Like I can't think, but like Aero Electronics and IndyCar. I have no idea.
You know what?
they
The weirdest sponsor I think I've ever seen was on the 26 truck, maybe this weekend. Maybe it was a 24 truck, and it was a gynecologist.
Oh yeah,
I was
Jeff
so
Earnhardt,
surprised by that. That's something you'd never think you would see
yeah, that probably
in a
stirs up
male-dominated
lot of
sport.
controversy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Cessna also sponsored Jamie McMurray.
It's airplanes.
Right. Who's going to
Yeah.
see Cessna on Jamie McMurray's car and go buy a freaking airplane?
I mean,
Right.
I know what they are, but I don't have money to buy an airplane.
Right.
so.
Right. I mean, there's a ton of weird ones. If I sat down and thought about it for a minute, I could probably think of 6 or 7. Brandt was a good one. Cessna was a good one. JGR really hasn't had I'm trying to think of teams now. JGR hasn't had very many.
What's UniFirst for Hendrick? What is that?
UniFirst
That's
has
another
kind of a
bank.
weird one.
It's a bank.
It's a bank? I didn't know that.
Yeah, just like Fifth Third is a bank as well. And banks, you said, was not really a common thing, Colton. But if I can think back to the first Union Bank, the 40 and the 46 Bush cars from way back when. So that's something that's been around. We've had Bell South
City Financial.
that eventually turned into AT&T. So cellular sponsors aren't really a part of motorsports anymore. But I mean, they were a thing from the 90s on.
Jared has something.
There's a betting. Kevin Harvick ran whatever that. I don't remember what it was. It was like a bet. Unibet. That's what it was. He ran the Unibet scheme at Richmond. I had no clue what that even was until I looked at it. I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So is it like a gambling site?
Yeah.
So kind of like the MGM.
Fantasy gambling, all those types of things. So that gets in, DraftKings is a sponsor of Bubba Wallace at Pocono. So those betting sites or whatever, you might start seeing some of those sponsors start making one-off appearances, and that's also good for the sport.
Yeah, we also had another one from JGR 3 or 4 years ago. It came out of nowhere, and they sponsored everything in the lower series. It's called IK9. It's like a police canine service. I don't know what it does, but they just started sponsoring Kyle Busch. They sponsored every Xfinity driver, and then they just left out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, Jeffrey Earnhardt was the big one. I don't remember what happened there, but yeah, I remember
They
midway through a race weekend, they ripped all the decals off the truck.
Yeah.
They were definitely shady.
Yeah, there's
I don't know. I don't know if they didn't pay someone, because that's a whole episode that we could do on sponsors just not paying and stuff. But I think we kind of ran out of steam with this little conversation, so let's go back into the Talladega stuff. We had 3 races on the for the fall race for the first time I think ever, and I don't know. Did you guys enjoy the fact that we had a triple header before we get to the specifics of the weekend?
Yes.
Yeah.
100% yes. Loved it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess that's a unanimous yes. So we'll get into it with 3 races. So obviously we had 3 winners. All of them being new winners was something interesting. So we can talk about that as we get into the specifics of the race. But the truck race, I'll go ahead and throw my opinion out there. I thought this was the worst race of the weekend. I didn't think the racing was good at all. It just had a lot of big wrecks, and then of course the finish there. So what did you guys think? What was your opinions on that truck race?
It seemed like, yeah, basically like what you said. It didn't seem like a truck Talladega race. Like something just seemed off the whole racing, and all it really was just a bunch of wrecks in the finish, in my opinion. And then I think there was some controversy with Kyle Busch on. I don't know if you guys saw that on Twitter. He was talking about how the PA announcer came on and said that's how the truck should look after on a finish, and Kyle Busch was like, "That's a pathetic way of selling it." I don't know if you guys saw that at all. Did you see that on Twitter?
Oh yeah. I don't know. At least I will say this. At least it was the only green flag finish of the week we got. So, like that's the redeeming part about the race.
Man, the truck race was the truck race. Do we expect anything different out of him?
No,
Yeah,
no.
the truck race has been pretty good for the last, I don't remember how many years I've been there, except for like 2018.
Yeah, 2019 was good.
Parker Kligerman winning. The trucks usually put on the most boring of the races, I'll say. Well, no, I'd say that would be Xfinity. So I think their trucks put on more of a procedural race. How about that? At these plate races, they don't really – they work at mile and a halves with the aero package, but the plate aero package has always just kind of been like the 2013 through 15 package in Cup, where it's just one guy out in the lead going back and forth and no one else can pass. So it's they're close, but just because they're close doesn't mean it's a good race. So I just saw a lot of wrecks, and that was about it. I was bored for the whole hour and whatever. I almost took a nap at a racetrack for the first time in my life, and I'll say that.
What do you think of Jennifer Jo Cobb in that race?
Oh my god!
I saw a tweet meme or whatever. You remember how when cars were Lightning McQueen's like dodging through all the wrecks at the beginning of the movie? And it's like how Jennifer Jo Cobb fought you.
Oh my god, there was a thing on the radio. If you were on the Twitter during the race, I think Parker Kligerman, he made it through the crash, and he said on the radio, he was like, "Yay, we missed it!" And then like 2 seconds later, she comes in from like 100 feet behind and just piles into him.
Yep.
After he had already missed the wreck.
Yeah,
right.
He's like, yeah, we're crash.
So someone had said to me, we were talking during this while I was at the racetrack, because it was a lengthy cleanup and everything, and they said, "What about those ARCA brakes from Jennifer Jo Cobb?" And I said, "She has brakes, because she literally used the 75 to stop herself. I mean, she went in there. I don't think she lifted. She just was like, this is some Days of Thunder shit. I'm making it through." It was pathetic. And I think Colton said it in our group chat. She was the worst NASCAR driver ever.
Yeah.
And that might not be a fair thing to say, because she didn't Kevin LePage it, but she did pretty much the same.
She did the reverse.
She's the worst wreck avoider. Like, that's the same.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the reverse Kevin
Lightning challenge.
Yep. So Kevin LePage went slow up into a pack. She went super fast into crashing cars. Yeah. I see why she did not get a Cup license. That's
right. Well, see, I think that she's still stuck in 2003. She doesn't know that we don't race to the caution flag anymore.
Dude, she tried to do the video game challenges, man. Wreck avoidance.
Yeah, there you go.
Know. It was terrible.
She's looking for a button somewhere. Yeah.
I wish there was spotter communication of hers. I'd love to hear what that was.
Yeah, we need radioactive for that race. Just for that one.
Hey, Jennifer, just send it. Just send it. Jennifer, just send it. I think you can miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you even see Parker's tweet? He's like, "Man, we could have made it through that if she had stopped 1,000 feet earlier."
Yeah, 18 seconds. She said.
Yeah, we went 18 seconds without getting crashed, and
yeah, that's a long time too.
That's like the reaction time of the fucking sloth on Zootopia. That's not acceptable. Yeah. You shouldn't be piloting a car if you're doing that.
That's 18 yards. That's 1,800 yards.
Right. You can't do that. You can't do that. Anyways, that wasn't the biggest, I guess, controversy of the race. It was a pretty big wreck, but I guess you guys alluded to it, Jared, more specifically. The end of that race came down to basically what turned out to be a green white checkered, and that last lap was insane. A very bludgeoned number 12 car or truck, excuse me, from Tate Fogelman. He just fucking sent her, and it worked. What do you guys think of that move by him? And I guess John Hunter Nemechek not even caring, it seemed, in his post-race interview.
I think it's gotten to the point where it's Talladega, and I feel like everything's just free game on the last lap, as you've seen in all the series. Like it's rare that you get a last lap without a wreck. So like I feel like at that point, like be it wrecked, and you can't really get upset about it because you know it's probably going to happen. Like even the drivers know, like if you're you're like if you're leading and getting pushed by someone, like yep, I'm either going to get dumped, wrecked, passed. I don't want to be leading because like they always say, like you don't want to be leading on the last lap, and that's basically what it comes down to.
I thought it was kind of interesting because it almost looked like one came down and one came up at the same time, and they came together. And I don't know. Like they didn't really give you good replays, so I think the fact that Nemechek wasn't upset probably means that he knew that he tried to block a little bit and he didn't really yield at all. So I don't know. I think it's just Talladega. If you're 200 yards from the line and somebody comes down and you're coming up, because he bounced off the apron and he got a little bit loose, you're not going to lift. So I don't know. Like it's just part of it. I don't blame either guy for not lifting. So I just thought it was funny.
It's Talladega. You see instances like 2008 with Talladega with Regan Smith and Tony Stewart. That either happens, or you have the 2009 Brad Keselowski, Carl Edwards. So it's basically like choose what you want to do. Like you want to get called if you don't want to get the yellow. Yeah, pick your poison. Something's going to happen regardless. You're not just going to get a clean. You're not going to get a clean last lap at Talladega.
Yeah, and I think that NASCAR's kind of cleaned up on that yellow line rule. We saw it in the truck race with Tate Fogelman kind of going below the yellow line, but NASCAR kind of figured, okay, he was either kind of forced or he had to. Yeah, that kind of leads me back to the Denny Hamlin situation last year. But John Hunter not being mad in his interview really paints the picture for me that either A, he knew he probably wasn't clear, he didn't get cleared by his spotter and went down, or just figured that Tate had enough of a run to kind of clip him that little bit. If he would have been mad, I kind of would have looked at this 7, 8, 9, 10 times. But the fact he wasn't mad, I watched the replay one more time and saw exactly what he thought. So, I mean, all is fair. I didn't really think Tate came up on him. At first, when I saw it live, I thought for sure Tate absolutely trashed him.
That's what I thought from my seat as well.
Yeah, I thought he completely dumped him, had no regard. In all honesty, the bigger argument we could be having here is whoever he was fighting for the lead coming to the line that wrecked both the trucks. I think that was more of a bigger dirty racing situation than the whole John Hunter Nemechek thing. But I mean, and that's Talladega, right? Are you going to go below this line, or are you going to hold your ground and throw someone in the catch fence like we saw?
Right. And the luxury that I had, I think that you guys that watched on TV didn't have, was the fact that I didn't actually see any of the Fox interviews or the NBC interviews for the whole weekend. Our camera and audio came from MRN. So in John Hunter Nemechek's interview with MRN, he actually said that it was his fault that whole thing happened. So it was interesting to hear that on the MRN interview from him, that that was my bad. I shouldn't have turned down. I wasn't clear. So he 100%, he wasn't mad because he did it. So I think that shows that maybe Tate Fogelman didn't really have much to do with that, other than the fact that he was there and he was going to go for it. Now, I think going for your first win is fine. And I did want to say, apparently, I set you guys off in our private chat when I said you guys had the luxury of seeing the interviews on Fox. What do you got to say about that, Colton?
You are implying that we got any interviews after the race, sir.
You didn't get any?
That's a bold statement. No,
the race ran over time, and as soon as Tate Fogelman crossed the line, I saw him slap the inside wall, and they cut the broadcast up to the booth and immediately cut it out to college football. We did not get anything after the race.
Yeah.
They said Tate Fogelman wins and cut to whatever college football game was
Yeah,
playing.
BYU.
Two
or something like
unranked
that.
teams, by the way. I may
Yeah,
know.
unranked.
I mean,
Yep.
It's kind of like the All-Star
disappointed
race.
but not surprised. I guess they did that at Martinsville.
Yep.
So
We didn't get anything. I had to go on
last year.
Twitter to look at John Hunter and Tate Fogelman's interviews.
Wow.
Y'all remember when Fox glitched out at the Martinsville race where Todd Gillen?
Yeah.
They missed the green white checker because of
Yeah.
technical difficulties.
Heck, you can
Oh,
even go back.
That's the best one.
You can even go back to the All-Star race this year because they literally. I remember watching that. I stayed up to watch that. Kyle Larson got interviewed on the front stretch. They interviewed Brad Keselowski, and they're like, "Hey, good job this season, guys. That's it."
Yep.
Like basically,
Jesus.
like yeah.
We didn't get anything.
Okay, so that says a lot about Fox and whether or not they care for viewers. But with that, I guess let's roll into the show Sunday. I'll come back to the Xfinity race right before we go to the Monday race, but we are going to talk about Sunday because we're going to talk about networks because I have a self-implied conspiracy theory that we did not run that race because NBC had Sunday Night Football. Do you guys think that is a correct assumption?
Yes. 100%. I think that's pretty much why they didn't run it because NBC is like, oh, we got NFL on, we got a Sunday Night in America pregame show tonight, so we can't be having NASCAR on while just watching them dry the track and anything. When in reality, it would probably be over before 7:00 because it gets dark at what time? 7:00, 7, 8 now.
Right.
So heck, you could even move it to NBCSN like they normally would do for Cup races, anyways. Regardless, like the Indianapolis Road Course, it was on big NBC, but since golf was on, they're like, oh, you're gonna watch the rest of the race on NBCSN. So I don't see why they couldn't have done it on. Tried to at least try to put it on NBC for a bit, and then if they absolutely had to, throw it back on NBCSN. Because what's on NBC? I wonder. I don't even know what was on NBCSN at that time. Like nobody cares because NBC's football, so everyone's probably watching that, and NBCSN's like, oh, we'll put on some podcast, Dan Patrick podcast show or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So, do you guys have anything to say? Because I got a lot to say.
Cool.
Nate, you're mute.
I was saying I don't have anything. I'm just gonna let Alex go. Like he'll get there. He'll get what we need.
Colton?
No, I mean I could see it. I don't was the race on Sunday on NBC or was it on NBC?
Yeah, it was on big NBC.
It was NBC.
Okay, so yeah, I could see that because they'd rather just cancel everything, move it to Monday when they know they'll get the ratings. They don't have Monday Night Football. They know they'll get the ratings on Monday that they would make up for Sunday because everyone who's watching that race would tune out immediately as soon as they saw the jet dryers and go to whatever football game was on. Even though NBCSN doesn't necessarily have football, they know they lose their viewers anyway. Let's push it to Monday.
I don't care.
I agree with that conspiracy.
Okay. So here's the thing.
I care about
All
the
right.
people at the track.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to start off with the ratings thing. All right. Because that's just a crock of bullshit because nobody watched that fucking race anyways. 0.77 million viewers watched that race. You know how ridiculously fucking low that is for a cup race, even on a Monday, especially for a Talladega race. We're talking about the last Gen 6 race on super speedways ever. We're not going to see this package again. This package we have been grooming for several years now, and it's perfect, and it put on a great show. We'll talk about that in a bit. But we'll back up to Sunday because Sunday, yeah, you got football coming on. Like the guys have said before me, you probably would have got the race in before the football stuff. We knew we were going to be racing the halfway on Monday. On Sunday, if you were at the racetrack, you can probably attest to this. The radar looked good. We were not going to get any more rain, and the track dried. We stayed probably 45 minutes to an hour after the race was canceled. The track dried by itself, except for between the Geico restart zone and the other Geico emblem on the other side of the trioval. So probably about a 700, 800 foot region of the trioval and then pit road. If you'd have put power with the Air Titans and the jet dryers on, that track would have been bone dry in less than 20 minutes. you would have had time to run an 188 lap race that night, barring red flags, and you would definitely have gotten past halfway, even with red flags, because we weren't going to get rain that night. We didn't get rain until after sunset. I think it was around midnight Eastern, so 11 p.m. We wouldn't have been on the track anyways. I don't know what the hell your problem is, but you ruined a lot of trips for a lot of people who spent a lot of their hard-earned money to come watch a cup race just because people on TV who weren't going to watch because they were at work at Monday were going to miss Sunday Night Football. Fuck you, NBC. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I second that.
if they had let it play out, we at least would have seen like an Eric Almirola Loudon situation where you had this great anticipation towards, when's the darkness going to come? I would have rather have seen that than to have missed the race because I'm at work on Monday.
Yeah, and obviously, I don't like the idea that they put the ratings before the people at the track because, I've been part of this at Daytona. It happens every single year I go to the summer Daytona. Instead of just running the race after a half-hour delay, they choose, no, we got to put it the next day because it's better ratings. It's like, I don't care. I'd rather watch a race at the track at 2 in the morning than I would to come back the next day.
It's not like they haven't done that before. They did that with the Southern 500 when they had that hurricane on the way.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your point? You got 0.77 million viewers. That's less than a million. How do you do that for a Talladega race?
It just shows the lack of consistency and communication from race control, the television networks, because kind of like what Colton said, you could have had an Eric Almirola Loudon situation, why couldn't we have done that if it was that dry? Because literally they called it so early. What time did they call it? What time was it that they called it?
Yeah, it was early.
It was like 4 p.m.
Yeah, so we've had how many races?
3.5 hours until sundown.
How many races have we had in the past where they will literally, let's say the race starts at 2 or 3, and we don't find out until 7 o'clock. We lost it. We'll come back again tomorrow. They called it super fast, and even the Coda race when Chase Elliott was leading, it was we'll call it, even though there was still a break when they could have gotten in, or then Loudon we'll just let it go. We're not gonna hold off on anything or push it. We're gonna try to drive this track and then make the race till dark. It just shows how much inconsistency it is with that, and even not even weather or darkness related over too. Just the race control itself has been so inconsistent because we could have a whole episode on inconsistent calls this season with NASCAR. So I think race control needs. I don't even know what they need at this point because it's so bad right now. I don't think
they need to clean house.
They need David
Throw
Hoops.
me and my dad up there.
I mean, Hoots wasn't perfect either. There were a lot of problems back then too.
Mm-hmm.
There were.
So it just basically just shows that was a prime example of lack of consistency when it comes to this. And I get it. I don't know if I can get the ratings forever, but I feel like it's especially Talladega. It's more important for the fans at the track than it is people. And if they're gonna try to get into this big streaming stuff, whatever in the future, why don't you just make it better for the fans at the track? Because those are your loyal fans. Those are your fans that are gonna continue to watch, rather than people who can just stream it later or whatever. You know what I mean? So I feel like at the track fans are a lot more important than your viewership afterwards. So obviously you can rewatch the race somehow or whatever. You can watch highlights, recaps. It's the internet. You can definitely find some sort of illegal website where you could watch the whole race without paying or whatever. So I think you need to really push to help satisfy the fans at the track rather than the fans watching from home. That's more important. I'd rather you guys have a good experience than us be oh man, I can't watch the race because football is on. I have to watch football. And guess what? If you're a big enough NASCAR fan, you're going to watch NASCAR regardless of what else is on. I obviously would I would have watched Talladega. I know it wouldn't overlap the football game, but I would rather watch NASCAR over whatever the Sunday game was.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think there's a couple things you have to factor in here. One is when I was a kid, I distinctly remember there being pre-race coverage of the fact that rain was going to interfere with this race. Mm-hmm. They started the race anyway, knowing that rain was going to come, just to know that the drivers are racing to halfway. They talked about it immensely. Why did we not do that here, knowing that, hey, it's raining right now, but there's a huge window we can get this race in, instead of immediately just push it back to Monday? We didn't see the coverage on, but a half hour, maybe a little bit more after what the green flag was supposed to fall, that they immediately cut it out and said, screw it, we're going to Monday. I don't like that. I'd rather sit around and watch rain delay coverage for 3 hours, whatever they're slotted, 4 hours, than just immediately cut out and say, okay, screw it. And then see pictures of no rain at the track, a dry racetrack. You also have to think about the fans at the track and the broadcast audience you already have on hand versus what you're going to get on Monday at the track and on the broadcast. Like you guys mentioned, I can watch the race replays anywhere. On YouTube, NASCAR will post it almost immediately after the race. But I mean, if you take out, let's say there were 90,000 fans in the stands, right? You're going to take that 90,000, you're going to add it to whatever viewers you had Sunday. That's your total viewership. If you're going to take 10,000 maybe on Monday and then add it to the 700 some odd thousand on Monday that watched it live, we're still under IndyCar numbers here. IndyCar gets 900,000 people a week, over 1 million most weeks. That's not the best look, even for the network. You got to think that you'd rather broadcast to as many people as possible, stick that rain delay out for an hour, and then go from there, even if football's on.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch up real quick, piggyback off what you're saying, Colton. I actually really enjoyed some of the rain delay coverage this week because they reshowed the 2001 EA Sports 500, and it was actually pretty cool because Jeff Burton and Dale Jr. just basically did like a play-by-play with their last couple laps, or whatever, and it was kind of cool at the end. It's like, oh, Jeff Burton went with me at the end, and they were all like hyped up about that. And I'm glad they actually like listen to the fans in some sort of way, because I've always been a big thing, like if you're going to show an old race while you have that rain delay, I think why would you show the one from the previous year? Because that's just going to confuse so many people with things. You need to do something where you're at least 10 plus years or something.
Yeah.
Rather than like last year, because I remember like last year one of the rain delay coverages when like Jimmy Johnson was still, it was like, oh, Jimmy Johnson's back this year. Like, no, it's last year's, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So like if you play an old race like that from like 10 years ago or something, or like I wish at New Hampshire they would have showed like an old race, like 2007 or something with Denny Hamlin and Jeff Gordon's post finish. You know, like show an older race just to like, you know, the older fans watching, you know, like us now, like give us that little nostalgic feel. Like, hey, that's I remember that race. That was pretty cool. And then you could even like show an old race, and be like, wow, look how packed those stands are, you know, and maybe we should get a NASCAR or something, you know. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and about the packed stands, this is the first full Talladega race since we've been back from COVID. There was over 100,000 people in attendance.
I believe it.
There was 30,000 people, maybe by my estimate, just by my eye power, and that's being very generous on Monday. I mean, I feel for the people that knew, like me, going home on Sunday, that there was no reason for us not to have a race that day because they spent their hard-earned money. My dad met some fans from Maryland that had driven down. There were plenty of people that flew down to go to this race and had to pack it up and go home. I mean, why are we doing this to our fans at the track? Because I do not care what happens on TV ratings-wise, because at a sport level, we can't make new fans or keep fans if they are not happy when they spend their money on the product. And you're not really spending money on the product because it's a part of your cable package. You're spending money because you went to this track. You expected to have a race. The electricity in the air was phenomenal pre-race. And up until the point where they called it, it went from being very, very hopeful to extremely negative. I'm sure that NASCAR lost thousands, if not tens of thousands of fans permanently because of one decision that they made at the track. And like Colton was saying, those guys are going to watch the race anyways on Monday because they were going to be at the racetrack, but they couldn't be there because of work on Monday. But now they're not going to watch the rest of the season and maybe never again. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been in that rain out situation. The only Talladega race I've been to, we drove 24 hours to Talladega from Cheyenne, Wyoming. We left here at 8:30 in the morning Cheyenne time, got there at 9:30 in the morning the very next day Alabama time. And then we got a rain out. I got to see the first stage, and then I had to listen to my favorite driver win the race on Monday as we were driving through Kansas City. It sucked. It was horrible. Hated it. I wish they would have tried their damnedest to get that race in.
Yeah, but there's a big but there, Colton, because
But.
I think I was at that race too. I think we both saw one of, if not the greatest, Gen 6 races of all time up until lap 86.
Yep.
When they called that race and said we're going to run the rest of the race on Monday. So at least we got to see green flag racing, which we didn't see any of this Sunday. And that's pathetic, honestly. Looking at the radar, watching the track dry with my own eyes in front of me within 45 minutes to an hour. Why? What are we doing? You are asking for fans to leave if you don't give fans a product. And
Right.
we've been doing that since 2004. And you can be out there and you can be on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and you can defend NASCAR for these kinds of decisions, but you're a part of the problem too. If you are passionate about this sport like the four of us are, you're going to criticize the hell out of them because they're killing it.
They can do better. They know how to. They should know how to handle like weather and watching the radar and stuff. But like I guess as they said in New Hampshire, they are up in the box or whatever. It might be tinted, so they can't really see what's going on. So they just make a guesstimated call on what they think is appropriate for them. It benefits them more than it benefits the fans at the track. You send
In the short term, yeah.
Yeah, in the short term, yeah. And you were saying, Alex, you send people home like for Monday if it's a move to a Monday race. Like I feel like you absolutely have to try to get that in Sunday because how many more situations are there like Colton? Like how many people drive from?
There's a lot.
There's a lot of that. Like I know, I think Dakota didn't get to go to the race Monday. Like
Dalton didn't either. Dalton had to leave.
LTC crew.
I'm not sure if Rattlesnake stayed or not.
No, yeah.
Pretty much everybody that we hung out with on Sunday didn't get to stay. I did meet the iceberg there, but I mean that was it.
Yeah, and I've been in this. I've been in that situation before. The 2020 Daytona 500. My mom and I went to that race. We did not have plans for Monday. Like I had school, she had work. We did not think in advance of getting that day off. And I remember when it got rained out. If it was rained out, if they had put it Monday at 4:30, or not 4:30, if they put it in the middle of the day, I could have stayed. But they put it at 4:30, so I wouldn't have been home until like Tuesday morning. And I remember walking out the gates saying, I guarantee you that Denny Hamlin is winning this race because I'm not going to be there. And sure enough, look what happened. Yep. I have never been so right about. I mean, I saw him win the year before in person, so I can't complain. But that was such a blur. I wish I actually got to see him win again in person because I would have actually celebrated it. And ever since then, I've been really hyper worried. I've got backup plans on backup plans to the point where I'm I have to have the next day off. I have to have nothing to do the day after that in case it's Tuesday. And it scares me to death. I don't want to have to ever have that experience again because everyone who's had it does not want it again.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty much an unwritten rule in NASCAR that if you're a fan and you have to leave the track because of a rain delay, the very next day your favorite driver is going to win because that's happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. This is a situation that has come up quite a few times, obviously, in the history of NASCAR, but I think only in the last 2 or 3 years have we had the problem of not even trying or it being a late race restart, like with Nathan with the 4:30 start in Michigan. I think it was 2019 or 2020. Mm-hmm. It was at 5 p.m. on a Monday. I'm sorry, no lights. Right. I don't. You know what? Let's move on. The Xfinity race on Saturday was a hell of a race. I thought it was going to be the race of the weekend before Monday happened. I was really scared that it was going to be the race of the weekend because for some reason the series that put on shitty speedway races, they came out to fucking play. I mean, that was a hell of a race. What did you guys see from home?
Xfinity Series is basically the premier series of NASCAR. That's what I say every single week, and it just seems every single week they always put on a really good show. Like, I'll even backtrack kind of off topic, but the Xfinity race at Bristol was probably one of the best like Xfinity races I've ever seen, especially live. Like, that was honestly probably one of the best like live races I've ever seen, just based off how that last lap ended up happening and everything. But just goes to show, like, the Xfinity Series guys, like they're definitely one of the better. That's probably the best series this season in terms of racing wise.
Yeah.
I guess like you guys were saying about the Xfinity race, I thought it was good. I do wish it ended under green because I think it would have been a crazy finish. There were still a bunch of good cars left. I thought the crashes would have taken out more cars, but it seems like every crash they had only took out like 3 or 4 guys. So I think had we gotten a finish, it probably would have gone out of the wire again.
Yeah. I've been saying it for a few months now that Xfinity is what I consider to be the premier series in NASCAR. I think they should run those races on Sunday and run the Cup races on Saturday. Just how it is anymore, right?
That's
Just run the faster cars
I
on
don't
Sunday.
disagree. I just think it's the shittiest opinion you could have because that's not something that
We shouldn't have to have this opinion.
Right.
We shouldn't have to have it.
Right.
But in terms of entertainment value, if NASCAR wants entertainment, put the Xfinity races on Sunday.
Hey, heck, even on Twitter, how many weekends are there where people are complaining about the Xfinity race? How many complaints do you ever see about the Xfinity besides Kyle Busch winning? Let's take that out. Like, besides that,
I mean,
what
stuff like this
people
weekend when it
complain
ended under darkness, the anomalies is when you get complaints.
Right.
And that's something I did want to say. I mean, the finish of this race was polarizing in very many ways. I mean, at least 3. I'm sure we'll talk about 2 of them. But first on and foremost, the darkness. I know we got a topic that we want to talk about with that. So I'm going to say it just like I said about Sunday night's race. We could have ended this race probably. We only had 15 laps to go if they went restart there. So we could have ended this race, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I get it. They
Absolutely.
The biggest thing for me though is that they ran around 8 times under caution, trying to decide whether or not they wanted to finish that race. And I wish they would not have done that, and they would just said, the 3rd or 4th lap of that caution period, all right, guys, one more restart. We're going to try and go the distance, but the next caution flag will end the race. Or they could have said, green, white, checkered, we're done. That's it. One more attempt. They could have done either of those situations and ended under green, and it would have been a better finish. So I don't know. Do you guys agree with that opinion, or are you fine with them running it out like they did?
I'm not fine with that. I want a green flag finish, and I think that wasting laps under caution, like, if you don't want to run the race, then just don't run the race. Like, you don't have to waste 8 laps under caution.
That's 16 minutes of sunlight, by the way.
Like, that could be a race right there.
Yeah, like, you don't need to do so many pace, like, unless there's like a lot of stuff to clean up or whatever. If they're trying to decide that, just do like 2. Just let them go. Just let them race. It's Talladega. They're gonna be fast enough. For how much you said, 15 minutes that they wasted there, you could probably get in at least 10 laps or so if it's a clean like restart. And I think the drivers would realize, like, hey, let's try to race clean until like the last couple laps, just so you get a green flag finish or somewhere relatively close to that. Like, let's not waste time, because that even like at New Hampshire, they were saying like, oh, we'll race till dark, or if necessary, if there's a caution, it's just going to be green, white, checkered. Like, it's not that complicated. And that goes back to the point that I made with inconsistency. Like, why they were thinking of that in New Hampshire, why weren't they thinking of that at Talladega? It's like you have a kid running that has no clue what they're trying to do up there.
Yeah, and honestly, another fun part is I was in a Discord server, like, people I've known from like 2 or 3 years now, and one guy in there, Keon, said, like, whoever's idea to start that race at 4:30 is stupid. Like, he just said that 5 minutes ago, and I'm like, yeah, I agree. Like, why would you start a race at 4:30?
Yeah, what time was the truck race start?
The truck race started at 1 30. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. They could
Why
have
didn't
started
they do
both
it?
of those races earlier.
Why
I
didn't
don't
they
get it.
do it
Why
at
did they
like
start at
noon?
4:30? I mean, they know there's going to be red flags.
Noon o'clock for the truck race, and then 3:30 for the
Yeah.
Xfinity race. It's not that complicated. You wouldn't think, but
Yeah.
I guess when it comes to NASCAR, if it's like simple or whatever, you can't be doing that. Or if it's logical, you can't do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, let's make
You
it.
have to make it like unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think there's another conversation that comes from this, and I think Colton's going to lead us off into that.
Well, you got a hint at it because I might. Shit. Oh yeah. So lights are a big issue. I this could have been solved with two things. One, starting earlier. You definitely could have started that truck race a bit earlier. I tuned on at 12 o'clock my time, Mountain Time, which is 2 o'clock Eastern. There's no reason we should be starting the first race of the day of a doubleheader at 2 o'clock Eastern, right? Especially at an Alabama track, where it's known for red flags, long cautions, etc. This brings me back to a point I made earlier about David Hoops. He didn't get the lineup always right. It kind of took him a while to get that a little bit. But he always had a sense of urgency under caution, to hurry up the cautions, to get them going, not only for the people watching on TV, but for the people in the stands. At COTA earlier this year, remember we had that like 40-minute caution flag run where we just saw cars doing laps for like over half an hour. We need to fix that.
Right.
Hurry up, get the cars off. And even saw it on Monday with the Cup race where with 1 to go, everyone pitted and they extended the caution, right? No, screw that. Everyone pitted. Let them figure it out, right? They know what they're doing. It's over a 2.5 mile track. They can get that back to the pace car and at least somewhat squared away before that green flag flies. We don't need to keep tacking laps on for unnecessary reasons here. That's really what killed this race was the super long caution of them deciding what they were going to do instead of them just saying, hey, all right, green, white, checkered, we're going to cancel these 10 laps. Go for it. I think we would have seen a hell of a finish had that happened.
Yeah, and then another thing I was trying to hint at was just the fact that we don't have lights here. They spent $50 million on that garage that they're not going to use because they don't practice anymore. So that's a different argument for a different day, but they can put $20-35 million in the lights and light this whole thing up with LEDs, and we don't have any of these problems. Now I know there's traditionalists that don't think that lights should be a part of Talladega, but for me, this opens up a triple header weekend for both the spring and the fall race, and having one of these races on Saturday being finished under dark so that we don't have to end the Xfinity race early. Now, I don't want to have a cup race at Talladega naturally start at 7 p.m.
Right.
I want them to start them around 12, and if we've got rain, we've got lights just for that, kind of just as a safety net. But, traditionalists in me would not want us to finish under the lights at Talladega. So I think everybody's kind of either one way or the other on the lights, but obviously that would have helped. So
my 2 cents for lights. My 2 cents
Okay.
for lights, real quick. I feel like if you're gonna host a playoff race, I think if the playoffs are as important as they're trying to push, I think you need to push to get every single possible lap that you can there. And there's only one track out of the last 10 races that does not have lights, and that is Talladega. Talladega is the only track in the playoffs that does not have lights. So I think, they spent $50 million on all the renovations that didn't even really matter because of COVID, and they didn't have the cup cars in the garage or anything. So why not spend some money and get some lights for it just in case? Because really, I feel like every track should have lights at least. Like there's no reason like Dover doesn't have lights or New Hampshire doesn't have lights. And like I said, if you're going to host a playoff race, you should have lights, because if the playoffs are so important, then we need to make it important to try to get it done, get the race in.
Right, and we're going down to 2 night races next year, which I think we can all agree with. I know Colton, you're definitely like me, and you want to have these Sunday afternoon races. But if the threat of rain comes, if you've got lights, we don't have to worry about it, and that's my main concern. But threat of rain did come, they decided not to use the whole open window of a dry track that they were going to have until sundown on Sunday, and they ran the race on Monday. First off and foremost, 117 laps I think we completed. What did you guys think of those 117 laps?
Oh, they were pretty good. They weren't bad. They weren't perfect, but they were pretty decent either way.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was pretty good racing up until that point, and it was really disappointing that it ended the way it did. But we already talked about that basically.
I got beef. It was a Monday race. I clock out for lunch. I get a half-hour lunch at my work. I clock out. I flip on the race, and the first thing I see is Kyle Larson blow a tire, head into the outside wall, throw a caution. And we were under a rain delay for about 20, 25 minutes, however long my lunch break was. Because as soon as I clocked back in and set my phone in my locker, I saw drivers strapping back into the cars. So I didn't see any of that race. Literally, all I saw was a rain delay for the half hour that I had lunch. And of course it works out that way because I'm a NASCAR fan. But man, I was so mad. Oh man.
Oh yeah, I could totally get why you would have been mad. That makes perfect sense. But another thing you were talking about was the caution laps and stuff. We had a lot of caution laps on Sunday too, kind of extend the race a little bit longer, I guess, time-wise than we could have. I mean, we could have, what you were talking about with hoots and condensing these cautions, we could have seen the end of stage 2 and the beginning of stage 3 had we not wasted so much time on the caution, in my opinion. And that could have created a totally different situation at the end of this race. And so let's go ahead and get into the controversy of it. Bubba Wallace with a historic record-breaking, as we talked about earlier for McDonald's, win. Also, since 1954 was the first time that the 23 car had been in victory lane. And, of course, since Wendell Scott, he's the first guy of African descent to win a race. And that's a big thing. But this controversy comes down with the fact that it was a rain-shortened race. So what do you guys think about these people that are discrediting Bubba Wallace because it was a rain-shortened victory?
I don't really think it's a fake win. He couldn't really do anything about it. Nobody wants to win a race under rain shortened. Like, nobody wants to win that way. So obviously you can't really fault the guy for just being, I guess, the victim of circumstance, if you will. He was leading the race and it started raining. So there's nothing he could have really done about that. I'm sure if you asked every driver in the field, they probably would have they probably would say they want to win a race the normal way, right? So I don't believe that you should discredit the rain shortened wins because they have nothing to do with the driver. I'm not saying that they have nothing to do with the fault. Like, there's no one's fault. Like, they shouldn't be to blame for it. Like, it's not, you can't just say, oh, that's bad because he won a rain shortened race. It's like, well, he didn't control the rain. Like, there's nothing he could do about it. So, like, this happens a lot. Dale Jr.'s final win, rain shortened. Clint Boyer's final win, rain shortened. Chris Buescher's first win, rain shortened. Justin Haley, rain shortened win. All these things happen, and I don't think they should be discredited because they're outside of people's control. So why fault the person who won the race over something they cannot control?
It's kind of like don't hate the player, hate the game type of deal.
Right,
like he did it. He did what he had to do, and so happened it was a rain shortened race. So, like, he was there. Like, you can't really discredit him because he did everything by the rules, right? And
it's not his fault it rained.
And I think he's getting more of this discredited thing just because of who he is. Like, no one had I don't think there was a single person that had an issue with Chase Elliott winning the rain shortened race at Coda earlier this year.
I had an issue with it because I didn't like that idea.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, I think it's just like bias type of deals. If it was someone else who won the rain shortened race, there would not be as many comments like, "Oh, he didn't earn that win." Like if Brad Keselowski would have won, he would have been like, "Oh, cool, Brad Keselowski won," and they moved on with their day. But no, since it was Bubba Wallace, you're like, "Oh, let's stir the pot of controversy today and just make a lot of people mad here on social media."
Yeah, no, I agree, and it splits into two platforms for me. So on Twitter, most of the drama that I saw outside of Jason Beam and Beam Designs, F that guy, was people complaining that haters were going to hate and complaining that there was going to be drama. There wasn't as much on Twitter as I thought there was going to be, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't see
However, yeah, it was calm on Twitter. On Facebook, however, if you guys log on to any NASCAR page, holy crap, disgusting. I saw people saying this win doesn't count, yada yada yada. The whole narrative went from last year being I'm not watching, he's never going to get a win, to this is the only win he's going to get, from those same people who said they were never watching NASCAR again. So I don't really get that.
Right.
If I say I'm never going to watch something again, I probably wouldn't. It's just gross. I mean, I saw a lot of people trying to discredit, and I've argued with dozens of them, trying to figure out exactly where they stand. Okay, well, you're upset with Bubba getting this rain shortened win. Why weren't you upset with Junior or Chase Elliott or Justin Haley, et cetera, et cetera? And it's, because they earned it. You're really going to tell me Justin Haley earned that win and Bubba Wallace didn't, coming from 20-something to first in a few laps? You're right. I mean, there's words for those people, and Facebook is a completely different breed. We all know it's a completely different demographic. They really just don't want to see any minority winning in NASCAR other than Kyle Larson, and it's not even for the right reasons.
Right.
So moral of the story here is stay away from NASCAR Facebook. I'm stoked about the win. I'm not a Bubba fan, but I'm a Bubba supporter. Like, he's one of the guys that if he wins, I'm not really going to be mad about it. I'm going to kind of, oh, yeah, cool, woohoo. I'd much rather have seen Blaney get that rain shortened win. But it is what it is. This has happened dozens of times in NASCAR history. Dozens of drivers have gotten their first win in rain shortened races. I think of Joey Logano, Ryan Newman, most recently Justin Haley. Tons of guys have done it. Why is this one an issue? I really don't get it. And I've heard the conspiracies. The funniest comment I've ever seen in my life was that some lady said NASCAR came over the radio and told drivers to wreck as soon as Bubba got the lead so they could throw the caution. She was dead serious about this. And I sent it to you guys in the group chat, and it was the funniest thing I've ever said or I've ever seen, that NASCAR would actually say something like that.
Yeah, and I don't think, you weren't wrong. Basically, what first part of your point was that nobody has the stuff that he was talking about last year, the compassion, the love, and the understanding. They don't care because of the color of his skin. We've talked about that with a couple of guests on here. We'll always talk about that because we don't fucking accept that. I'm sorry. I don't accept the racism. I don't accept the prejudice. I don't. If we ever, have an openly gay driver or, the women drivers that come up, transgender, whatever, if you don't like them because they're different, fuck you. And that's all I'm going to say. Right. But when it comes to this win being different than the other ones, I think they're right. They are different than some of the other ones. I look specifically at Chris Buescher and I look at Justin Haley. Those were two strategy calls. There's a lot of people that say that strategy calls don't really win races because they didn't do it under their own might. Even the Coke 600 that Austin Dillon won, debatable of whether or not he won that because this, that, or the other, or the Texas race with him. That's a whole subset. But this problem that I've had with them saying that this is not a real win because it's a rain shortened race is exactly what Colton said. He came from 23rd to first in 3 laps to win that race. Everyone knew the rain was coming. They were racing to the stage end as well, by the way. They were 3 laps from the stage end when the race ended. And everyone was racing full tilt for that win because they knew the rain was coming. So just shut up, man. Bubba earned that more so than those other guys that you say.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm going to be fair to all the rain winners here. I think they all should fall under the same category, even the strategy ones, because, you still have – those guys took gambles that nobody else was willing to take. So I don't think it's fair to say that this rain winner earned it more than that rain winner. Like, they all earned it. Like, it's not their fault. They just they took advantage of circumstances,
And I agree with that. I'm just using their logic against them because in this situation, Bubba clearly earned it more than them using the logic of the rain race and all that stuff.
Yeah, even like Justin Haley's win last year, if that like it's not like you can't really say that he didn't earn his because I'm pretty sure I think what was it, Kurt Busch or something pitted and all those guys decided to pit because they were told on the radio like, oh, we might go back green, and then he stayed out taking the gamble, and it ended up getting Justin Haley the win and kind of screwing those guys like Kurt Busch that pitted because they thought like, oh, we might actually get back going for a couple laps or something, but it didn't happen. So to say that like Bubba didn't earn it compared to like, and then saying like Justin Haley earned his win, like you can't really, you're like contradicting yourself on that. You have to look at like what's happened before all that transpired. You know, that's the point I'm trying to make with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and there was a great point brought up too by Chad in the fact that Bubba doesn't have a JGR car. He has a second tier JGR car. That's the 95 car. That's all it's ever going to be because it's the second tier Toyota car. Toyota is going to dump all their money into JGR. They're not going to give Bubba the equipment. So if you want to get out and say, oh, he hasn't had the speed all year, well, no shit, right? Like FRR doesn't have the speed that Penske has because they're the second tier, third tier Ford camp. They're not the top tier. I think Bubba could do a hell of a lot better in top tier equipment. I think if there was a way to level it out, kind of like they're trying to do with his next gen car, you'd probably see him run up front a lot more. He ran up front quite a bit during not only the plate races, but I think back to even the Roval, the Daytona road course, where he was running in the top 10 all day until he got taken out super late in the race.
That's probably Phoenix, right? Because he's not like a road course.
Phoenix was another one.
Right. I look at it, I think they will get better. Kurt Busch is coming there next year. Money, sponsorship. They're too good of a team to get bad cars for that long, and I don't think they are bad cars. I think they're just not as good as what people think they are.
Right.
And I think he's got a long way to go as a driver. You look at his periphery stats from Motorsport Analytics, and he's considered a raw driver, if you will. Like that's the term they use to describe him. Like he's very good at tracks where you can quote unquote get on the wheel and just drag a car. Like Atlanta, that was his best mile and a half this year. All the shorter, flatter tracks he seems to do all right at. Super speedways he does all right at. The only tracks where they aren't as good are the ones where the car can really ruin you, like a mile and a half. Like tracks where less is more from a driving standpoint. So I think once he gets better on road courses and once they sort it out about mile and a half tracks where the driver doesn't have to worry as much as the team does, then they'll probably be like a top 15 threat most weeks.
So, yeah, the thing is, though, I think it's a little bit disrespectful. The obvious disrespect in the room, but to say this win was not earned is disrespectful for this team and honestly for the sport. So when you have Bubba Wallace coming into this new team that's formed by a current Cup driver that's a Hall of Fame driver in the future and arguably a GOAT of the NBA forming a team, this is kind of NASCAR's PR baby to a point. I mean, this is the most looked at team, the most scrutinized team of 2021, in my opinion. And to disservice the fact that they worked hard to get there, to give Bubba that car, and Bubba went out there and drove his ass off to win this race is a little bit ridiculous. And I think that's going to be my final point. Is just this is good for the sport. Why are you complaining? Michael Jordan put money in it. You got McDonald's coming on as a sponsor, DraftKings, the other ones that we talked about. There's a lot of money going into this team, and NASCAR is going to make a lot of money from it. And the more money that they get, the more content that we do. So just calm down, deal with the fact that a person who doesn't have the same skin color as you won a race and come back next week. Grow up, I guess, and that's it. So I'll go ahead and wrap this up and say thank you for watching. And, if you're watching here on Twitter, but if you don't, our Fan Fuel MSM Twitter handle is capital F, capital F, capital MSM. Go ahead, follow us there. Leave a comment to any of these things that we're putting out. Come talk to us in direct messages and stuff. And then we've also got a website. I don't know if you've heard us talk about it every single week of the show that we've had it on, fanfuelmotorsports.com. And it's where you guys are allowed to come on and kind of send us some content so that we can put it out there by the fans, for the fans, the whole fan fuel mantra. We want you guys to fuel that, talk about motorsport. So I'd love for you to help us out. You can do that by emailing us at fanfuelpodcast@gmail.com or direct messaging us on Twitter. And also our pinned tweet has a form that you can fill out with your content and send it to us at that email at fanfuelpodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, I think some of us have a little bit of announcements. For once.
Yeah.
All right. So with basically, as Alex just hit us up with our PR stuff for fanfuelmotorsports.com, obviously we like to share a bunch of different stories within the motorsports industry. And this kind of all came together today. I just was a simple random DM message, and we kind of got the ball rolling on this one. So something in the NASCAR industry, how do the cars get to the track? Well, there's haulers to transport the cars, and we might be having a special guest. It is a Cup Series hauler driver I have been messaging on, and he is 100% down with us to go on the show, and we will give you guys all a broader insight on what goes on throughout that part of the sport. This is something I'm kind of curious on. What's a weekly routine for these guys? They travel a lot more than what the drivers do, because I'm sure the drivers take their private jets or whatever to the racetracks, or you got these guys going all across the country. So there's some big things we can look at, how are they gonna handle going from North Carolina the whole way to Los Angeles and then come back and then go down south to Daytona, and just something where we can get a better insight on that, because that's something I'm kind of curious on. I'm sure a lot of you guys are, and I'm super excited for it. I'm not going to name who it is, but definitely check out the Fan Fuel Motorsports Twitter page. Maybe we'll drop some hints and teasers with it, but definitely we're going to shoot for next Wednesday about the same time, and hopefully give you guys a good show. I'm really super interested. I'm going to be learning the whole time, as will these guys, I'm sure. So it'll definitely be an interesting episode if this all goes through. But like I said, he messaged me. He said he's 100% down. Just let him know day and time, and we're ready.
Yeah, and so with that, I'll add on just a little bit of a sneak teaser. We'll probably, as it's more finalized, get to you. But this is going to be a Cup hauler driver who drives for a car that might have the colors blue, white, and yellow on it. So I'll let you guys kind of use your imaginations for that. We'll tease some more stuff on Twitter, and we'll figure it out along the way. So let's see if you can guess it before we drop who we're going to have on the show next Wednesday. But until then, thanks for listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And go ahead and share with your friends that we're going to have a big name hauler driver on next Wednesday. And peace out. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching as always.